handle the truth.
We are back. Welcome to episode 3 of the Truth Podcast, sponsored by Gatorade Santiago and La Liga Works, which can be seen on 7:30 The Game, ESPN CLT Podcenter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere where you get podcasts. I'm Mike Udomagala here, as usual, alongside my co-host Jermaine Barnes. JB, give the listeners a taste of what's going on today in episode 3 and why our Women's Appreciation episode means so much to you.
Today is Women's Appreciation Day. This is a humongous topic, especially with the current culture of basketball today. So I felt it was only necessary that we do something for our ladies, and I know Mikey feels the same way. We got a great show, and the only way we can bring out an appreciation for women is to have excellent women on the show today.
And JB, who do we got on today? Who are these famous women who's going to chop it up with us on The Truth?
Oh, well, you have to have the GOAT. Like, there's no point of having a guest unless you have the greatest of all time, and that's Cynthia Cooper. You know, we also have Melvin, NC State Hall of Famer, assistant coach in the WNBA right now, and a WNBA All-Star. So it doesn't get much better than the guest we have today, and there's no proper way to do it but then this way.
Just before we begin, all of our opinions and things we say on this are our opinions only and do not have to do with ESPN. That being said, you know, in episode 1, JB, we gave them both of our top 10 players of all time in the NBA before we interviewed Derek Anderson. Here we are on Women's Appreciation Day. Give me your top 5 all-time WNBA players.
Oh, well, this is easy for me. Number 5, Candace Parker, 3-time MVP. That's counting regular season and finals. She won 1 title, Defensive Player of the Year, and of course, a personality on NBA TV now. Number 4, the magnificent Maya Moore. I mean, just a dominant superstar guard. I would say the Kobe Bryant of the WNBA. 4-time champion, 2-time MVP, and just the off-the-court brilliance of her from fighting justice for her husband. And it is so much that we can touch on, but I feel like she's a phenomenal person and definitely a superstar athlete. Number 3, Lisa Leslie. I mean, the Wilt Chamberlain of women's basketball, 2-time champion, all-time leading rebounder, second in scoring. I mean, the first professional dunk ever. You know, Lisa Leslie is the standard. Number 2, Diana Taurasi. I mean, just everything. Taurasi is a super competitor. She has all the records. She's a champion, scoring champion, titles, MVPs, you name it. 3-time MVP, 3 titles. I mean, can't say enough. And then, of course, Cynthia Cooper, number 1. I mean, you're talking about the all-time leading scorer and point per game average. We're talking about somebody who joined the WNBA as a 34-year-old and still won Rookie of the Year, won 4 titles in a row, won a high school state championship, an NCAA championship, a EuroLeague championship, a gold medal, and then 4 WNBA titles. I mean, I can go on and on and on. 6-time MVP that goes for finals and regular season, highest scoring average ever. First Naismith WNBA Hall of Famer ever, the GOAT, Cynthia Cooper.
And people, you heard all of her accolades, and we have the woman herself, 2010 Hall of Famer, and one of the most accomplished players of all time, men and women, the great Cynthia Cooper.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
All right, JB, let's get it started with asking Cynthia about her whole career as a whole. I'm gonna go over some accolades of yours. 2-time NCAA champion at USC, 4-time WNBA champion, 4-time final MVP, 2-time WNBA MVP, 3-time scoring champion. It just goes on and on and on, Cynthia. Thinking back and looking back and listening to those accomplishments, what goes through your head from your legendary career?
You know, I think the first thing I wanted to do was leave a legacy. You know, I wanted to make sure that there was a league that stayed around for little girls to play professional basketball in America. I wanted to bring my A game. So when I came from overseas playing in Italy, I wanted to come back and let fans know what I had been doing for so many years away from America, pursuing my dream of playing professional basketball. So the accolades are the accolades, but for me, I like to win. I'm all about winning. The only reason I participate is to win. I practice to win. I work hard to win. I run my sprints to win. I'm in the gym to get better so that I can help my team win championships. And I wanted to bring that type of mentality to the WNBA.
And JB, this is our Women's Appreciation episode. You have a hand in a lot of women's basketball overseas. Obviously, you know Coop and tons of other WNBA players. Tell us how much Coop means to you, her legacy, and just women's basketball as a whole.
I mean, for me personally, Coop was everything. You know, this is no secret. Anybody that has any personal relationship with me or follows me on social media, they know my stance on Coop. Coop is the Michael Jordan of women's basketball. We grew up in the era where we saw Coop when she came into the league. Of course, at this time, you got to understand that women didn't have a place to go. They had the ABL, and that was the closest thing they had. And all the men were campaigning for women to have their own league. So the women had our support from the beginning, not because, oh, they're females. No, because they were that good. They had the Teresa Edwards, Lisa Leslie's, and them. But when Coop hit the scene, Coop added the flair to the game as a whole. There were women that could hoop, and then you had Coop. Like, you got to understand, 18 to 20,000 fans were in Houston on their feet doing this. We're eighth, ninth grade, we're creating Coop on NBA Live. Coop was a culture phenomenon. This is like something you could never understand. This was bigger than women's basketball. Coop was the Michael Vick experience if you're from the South. So I felt like if I grew up in that culture and I saw that as a kid, when I became older and I had the opportunity to give back, it was because I knew in 2030 there would be a Coop that needed me in that aspect to deliver that opportunity when they didn't have it. So when I saw somebody have to struggle and put the women on their back, kind of like a Jackie Robinson or Satchel Paige or, you know, Josh Gibson of the Negro League and back in the day where blacks didn't get to play baseball, that was Coop to us. So it was like, who am I not to stand in and bridge the gap for women of color, you know, and not only just women of color, but also all women. When I saw my childhood in Coop and what she did for the culture of the game, you know what I'm saying? So I understood her sacrifice and I was all for it. And that's why I stand behind it like I do right now.
Wow, JB, good night. Shoot, you just made me feel great.
Here we go.
That's it, Coop. That's the interview. All right, we're gone.
That's it. All right, that's a wrap.
Cut. And I'll take this next one, JB. Talking about your USC days, Coop, early to mid 80s, yourself, Sheryl Miller, Rhonda Wyndham, the McGee sisters. Tell us about that team and just being like one of the first legendary college women's basketball teams.
You know, it's so funny because most people think that I was a star on every team that I played on. But really, I started playing basketball late. I started at age 15. I had one scholarship offer, and that scholarship offer was to USC. So it was amazing for me to get to play at SC. And then we got the #1 recruit in the nation, and Sheryl Miller. The McGee twins are already there. So the thing for me is, you know, Sheryl Miller had won state championship. I had won the state championship when I was in high school. So there's a little competition there initially, but it made for some of the top practices, the best practices I've ever been a part of. And we just made each other better. And the big thing that people don't know is that I came off the bench at USC and I'm in the Hall of Fame. So I came off the bench. That's how good that team was. They called me the spark plug. And I think when you set out and winning is the #1 thing in your mind, you're willing to assume whatever role you need to assume in order for your team to be successful. That's always been my #1 position, my #1 goal. And so with USC, I mean, our practices were tougher than most of our games. And we just held each other to a high standard. But and on another note, remember, I'm from the inner city. So going to a private university like USC, it really opened the windows of the world to me. I never really traveled outside of Los Angeles, California. I mean, we took one trip up north to play the state championship game, but I had never really traveled outside of California. So USC gave me all of those experiences and really the confidence to pursue a professional career over in Italy. Io parlo italiano, I speak fluent Italian. And I mean, I would have never had that opportunity had it not been for my experiences playing for a great university like USC. And so when you have those building blocks, the next thing is championships. You can't, the only reason you should participate in any sport on any level is to win championships. And that's what we were focused on. And we were like-minded. We all had the same goal. And that's not to just win one championship, but when you have that target on your back, that bullseye on your back, go back and do it again, back-to-back national championships. So that was the goal, and that's what we did.
Yeah. Hello, Mikey. Let me touch this one because I know Mikey is a big historian when it comes to the game of basketball, and he loves Sheryl, and rightfully so. But when it came down to us developing a list, and I told him who my top 5 was, I told him it was a difference between being a basketball legend and the WNBA legend. I told him it's 2 different lists. I said, if you're going off just the basketball GOAT, I can hear everybody with the Sheryl Miller debates because of the legend of Sheryl. But more importantly, just like LeBron James, like longevity also matters. And when I explain to people what you truly went through, because I played 12 years overseas, and when I explain this whole breakdown to people of what you did, where you started, where you ended, and how you didn't stop, it was like, oh, no. Now we're going to start all the way back over like I'm a rookie. Don't tell me about my age. So I want to point out a few things because I know Mikey definitely wants to touch in on Sheryl, and I'm okay with that. But this is where I go with the situation. When you left college, you went to Spain first.
Yes.
I know you was in Spain first, and then you finished, I think you went 9 seasons or maybe 10 in Italy,
10.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I told these people that you were averaging over 40 points, you were winning titles, you were winning MVP, and when you transitioned over to the WNBA, it was almost like you were starting over all over again, because nobody really knew who Coop was at that standpoint. Now, I'm going to tell you this. When I was in 9th grade, you taught me contain. People don't know what this means. See, being a great container doesn't mean you can't play defense. It means you're smart. So I was a contained defender. I was our best defender, but it never showed up on the stat sheet. I didn't have stats, blocks, anything, but I cover your eyes, I box you out. Somebody else would get the rebound, but I'm boxing out. They were like, well, who taught you how to do this? I would never block shots. I would cover the eyes. I said, Coop play defense like that. Coop never fouls out. Coop wanted to make sure she put everybody else in position to win based off her unselfish defense because it wasn't based off the numbers, but people don't understand that word contain. So I got my contained defense from you. That's for starters. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to, just on that point. So, I've never been a great defensive player, but I've always been a champion. And champions find a way to win. And if you know what your weakness is, then you have to be smart enough to fortify those weaknesses with technique and skill. And that's what I tried to do defensively. It's like Kim Perrott would pressure the ball. Well, if I'm not in the passing lane, it does no good, right? So I just tried to play smarter. And also, I really felt like, and look, I say this in the most humble way possible, ain't nobody trying to outscore Coop. Ain't nobody going to outscore me. So all I really had to do was keep you to 10 to 15 points. And I'm getting ready to put up this 30, 40 and balance it out.
Gotcha. Right. And Coop, in the beginning, when you were in Italy, who recruited you to the WNBA? I know David Stern had a big hand in creating it, but who really brought a contract to you, said, this is what's going on. I think you should really make this switch. And I mean, 10 years overseas to coming back to America, starting something new. Explain all that.
Well, I would tell you, it's a funny story. Actually, I had heard about the WNBA, and I wasn't sure. They weren't sure if it was going to be like a summer league. They really weren't sure. I knew it was going to be a part of the NBA, so I felt like it was going to be successful. So I'm overseas playing, and I'm still hearing the rumblings about the WNBA that it's actually going to happen. before I went overseas, I tried to get on with the ABL because that was the professional league at the time. They said that they had enough guards and they were good. And so I was like, okay, all right. So I went overseas. I go overseas. I hear about the WNBA. So I put together my stats. I put together an intro letter. I put together video, and I put it in a FedEx box about to ship it off. But before I did that, I put a call in to the WNBA office to let them know the package was coming. So they connected me with Renee Brown. I'll never forget this. I said, yo, Renee, this is Cynthia Cooper. I heard there's going to be a league called the WNBA. I really want to play in it. I've already put together my stats, my resume. I put together an intro letter. I'm sending you video. She didn't even let me finish. She was like, Cynthia Cooper from Italy? I said, yes, I'm about to send you this. She said, oh, girl, you're in our top 8 players. You're going to be playing in Houston. I was like, yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. She said, we need your address so we can send you the contract. Man, I was over the moon with the thought that I had an opportunity to play in the WNBA in its inaugural season. So I didn't, when I came overseas, I knew what I had. When I came from overseas, I knew who I was as a basketball player. I started playing in the WNBA at 34. Mm-hmm. So I was ready. I was like, all right, y'all gonna let me come back to America, play professional basketball in Houston, because what most people didn't know, I was already living in Houston. And you gonna pay me? I was like, I'm in. I'm in. I'll do that.
Wow. Coop, our podcast is called The Truth. And we really don't hold back on the questions we ask, and they are difficult questions. And I want to touch on something that I saw when I was a kid, and it could be me because I dig deep into stuff. During the time when you were going into your height as Super Cooper, I think Sheryl just had her baby. Swoops just had her baby. Mm-hmm. And she was coming back, and we're talking about somebody that got the first shoe. She was the one. She was the golden child. That's business. That's marketing. We all understand that. I was all for it. I love the team you guys had. But I also felt like when she was pregnant and she was gone, they had the Rebecca Lobos. They had the Spoons. They had all these girls they had built up, Lisa Leslie, that they wanted to win. And you kind of came and destroyed that. Now, Swoops came into play, and I think she was a phenomenal player. But I felt like, in my personal opinion, that politically, business-wise, they were like, okay, this is who next. Let's move you out the way. And I was like, we don't want her out the way. You got to come fit in with what we doing with this Coop thing. When Coop want to leave, then you can do what you want to do. But it ain't going to be that's how I felt. That's how our people felt. That's how our school felt. We hated what was going on right there. Now, I'm not saying you two had issues, but what I'm trying to say is I didn't like the way the league tried to kind of push you out, like, thank you for that intro of what that was. Now we're going to go with this. And then they tried that, and it didn't work, and then they still had to come back to save us Coop, finals MVP again. I threw that out there. I could be wrong, but you can correct me.
So you're not wrong. I think the whole plan was to get it to be Sheryl Swoop's team. They got an older player from overseas. They felt like I could hold down the fort until Sheryl Swoops got back. It's just I had different plans. Yeah. And I came to play. I didn't come to get the promotions and the, Rebecca Lobo, the Lisa Leslie, and the Sheryl Swoops type of promo. I just came to play basketball and bring my A game every night. And I realized something overseas. One thing I learned overseas is that 1, I can score against 3. 2, I can finish. I learned how to finish overseas. And 4, when you put in the work, everything else happens. You don't have to promote me. I'm just going to come in here and put in the work. And that's what I did. I'm not knocking anybody. They thought it was her team. I just was like, you know what? I'm going to come in here and put on work because I already knew. Nobody knew what I could do. Nobody knew. There were a couple players that had experienced me overseas, but for the most part, nobody knew what I could do. And so, yeah, there was talk, even after my first season, there was talk of me retiring after my first season. Like, yeah, got me mixed up. We're the champions. I'm the regular season MVP, and I'm the championship series MVP. And you think I'm ready to retire? That's the retirement? That's the, nah, man.
No.
So, you know, so for me, I felt it, but, you know, I felt adversity before. And you are not who they say you are. You are who you believe you are. And when I was at USC, I always believed I was a champion, even though I was coming off the bench and I was playing in the shadow of the McGee twins and Sheryl Miller. I was always a champion. I didn't stop being a champion. My role on that team was different. When I got to the WNBA, I was a champion. I knew who I was. I had developed my game. My game was a lot more complete than when I started playing overseas. So now I already know my worth. I'll just have to show it to you guys. And here's the thing about me. I will do anything to win. So I came out, I'm still going to put up my numbers because I know there are certain people, they're trying to outdo me. So I'm going to bring my A game every night and see if you're going to bring yours every night. Mm-hmm. That's how we became champions. That's how in our second year, we had the best winning percentage of any professional basketball team, 27-3, 90%. So I'm like, all right, that's what triggers you, like that's what motivates you. All right, I'm gonna come in here every single day and put numbers up. And I want you to come in here every single day and put numbers up. Actually, Sheryl and I, we really complimented one another because I was more of a slasher. She was more of a spot up shooter. She was a defender. I was a container. Mm-hmm. we really complimented one another. It was just a lot of friction, outside friction. Yeah. Like there weren't enough balls. And remember now, we had Tina Thompson as well. All three of us Hall of Famers.
Stacked
right?
team. Stacked team.
And so it all happened because people underestimated me, right? I was like the X factor. So they thought I was older. They knew I could play, but they were like, she's going to retire soon. And we have a young Tina Thompson ready. And then we have Sheryl Swoopes post giving birth, and she'll be ready to go. The thing is, I wasn't happy just winning or content winning one championship or two championships or three championships. You know, I'm in it to win it. And, you know, and so, yeah, that was my mentality. I always believed I was a champion. I was a go-to player. I could make people around me better and we could win championships. That was my role on that team. And you know what? Nobody could really take it from me.
No.
And that mentality, everything you mentioned, your college years with Sheryl and really those battles in practice. I watched you on Knuckleheads a couple weeks ago, and you were also talking about how you would play growing up against guys. So tell us how those practices with that stacked team at college and playing against guys really just, you know, got this mentality into you.
So I played against guys, and the first thing, I played in a time where guys didn't want women to play. I'll say girls. Guys wouldn't let girls play. Let me tell you, they wouldn't even let me call a game. Like I would come in the gym like a normal person. I'm like, all right, who got next? All right, I'm after you. Nah, you can't call. I used to have my brother come in to call a game, pick me on his team in order for me to play. So for me, I've always had some level of hate and adversity to overcome. But you have to always stay focused on your goal. You can't focus on what people are saying or what people are doing to get you off your path. So for me, I was jealous of Sheryl Miller when she came to USC. I was jealous because she was getting all of this hype. And remember, in my mind, I'm a champion. I'm a go-to player. But my role on this team is a sixth man, right? So I was like, I want to be. So I worked. I put in the work. And then when I saw Sheryl Miller play, I was like, oh my God, she is great. Yeah. Like, I want to be like her. So I started working on my game. I started working on different parts of my game. I wanted to be great. And so, and once again, I never had the mentality that I was anything less just because I was playing in a different role. So the guys wouldn't let me play. Later on, I would walk in the gym. The first thing that they said, yo, Coop, you running? Yeah, I'm running. I got Coop. Like, because they know not only am I going to score, because that's what I do, but I'm also going to make people around me better. Right? So we're going to stay on the court, because that, when you're playing pickup, that's the name of the game. Stay on the court. you don't want to get off and have to wait, right? And then at USC, the thing that my coaches and my teammates loved about me is that I was clutch. I was going to be there every single game because I had put the work in practice. And the WNBA, the same thing. That's why I was able to win with my team, the MVP of the championship series 4 years in a row. Because they knew what I was going to do with the ball. And it wasn't always shooting it. Sometimes it was setting someone up. Sometimes it was dishing to Tina to knock down her three-pointer, or Sheryl so she could, knock down her shot, or we're on a fast break. I assumed all of those roles so that we could win championships. But I learned how to do that overseas, because overseas, they don't care. You got to score. We got to win. You got to make us better. And I play with all different types of people. They're double teaming, boxing one, they're triple team. They're being extra physical with you. And in all of that, I became one of the top finishers in the game. Right. Because they weren't going to call a foul. My coaches and my organization, I needed to score. We needed to win. That was my mentality. I brought that mentality to the WNBA.
Mm-hmm. Change the culture. Now, I'm glad you said that, because I want to ask another tough question. Now, Coop, I played in 18 countries. You dominated overseas. You dominated in the league. Now you're currently coaching, so you're interacting with this next generation. I coach in Europe, right? I own and I build markets for women also. So I'm gonna ask you this, because this is a big issue in the women's game today, from my view and my experience, because I'm hands-on in it. When I was growing up and I watched you guys play, your number one priority was the game. Today, I feel like the game is more politically driven and the game comes last. The question I have is, if the business model is seeing 18,000 fans going to support Houston, and now today, the WNBA struggles with attendance, struggles with keeping the nice arenas. You would think that they would focus more on what you guys focus on, because you were the pioneers laying the bricks. And now today, I feel like they completely forgot about the sacrifice. I want to know your thoughts on the game when you were playing and the game today. And I'm going to just say it, Coop. I'm a father. So when I take my child, because I used to work with WNBA teams, so as a father of a young lady that I want to be Coop, when I take my young lady to a game and their priorities are not basketball, it's other agendas, I'm going to take her out and I'm going to say, play volleyball. This is what a lot of men say under the table that they won't say in public. I'll speak on it. So I want to know from the GOAT, I really want to know your mentality, because now you're with those young ladies in the NCAA. You're working hands-on. I want to know the mindset of your generation and what's happening now, because I only can judge it from a masculine point of view. I can't judge it being in those situations as a player and now as a coach and also as a mother.
So there are a few things, right? So first of all, I think players are happy, satisfied, they're content with underachieving.
Right.
They also are scared, afraid, literally fearful of making a mistake. So how can you get better if you're not willing to go the extra mile and make a mistake, make an adjustment, and then do it better the next time? So the one thing about me is I was never perfect. I came from the inner city. I knew I was behind because I started playing basketball late, and so I worked to get better. That leads me to my next point. Nobody wants to put in hard work anymore. Everybody wants instant gratification. They want their ESPN top 10 moment. And me, I never cared about that. I only cared about being great. I cared about being great every day. So when I was in practice, and when I showed up at training camp in the WNBA on the first day every single year, my coaches looked at me crazy. My teammates looked at me crazy. And I say I showed up. Actually, I was already in the gym working out. So I worked out before they practiced. I then practiced with them. And then I took the rookies and we played one-on-one after practice. So because this is my profession. I'm trying to be great. I'm not trying to be good. Y'all trying to be good. I'm trying to be great. I think that's what's wrong with this generation. Everything is on Twitter now. So when I talk to my team, I tell my team, stop trying to be perfect. Make a mistake, make an adjustment, and get better. Get better. And that's how you become great. That's how you get better. You didn't come here with these skills. You have to learn these skills in order for you to have a complete game. And so I really stress, and you know, the other thing, let me talk about underachieving. You know, so many kids think they're great. And then when they fail at something, they go so low. Mm-hmm. They get depressed. I'm like, dude, you just missed a shot. The world didn't end. Mm-hmm. Make an adjustment. If it was short, shoot it hard. If it was straight, shoot with more arch. I mean, just make an adjustment, do it better the next time. But never be happy underachieving. Mm-hmm. You cannot do the same thing and repeat the same mistake over and over and over again and expect a different result. It's not gonna happen. In order for something to happen different, you are going to have to do something different. So when I coach and when I played, I always adjusted my game. You think I played the same against men that I did against women? No. Men are quicker, they're stronger, they jump higher, they're so athletic. And when I played, they got their pride is off the chart. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be extra physical with me. And that's okay. I used to brush that off all the time. Anyway, my point being, this new generation, and I would encourage you to think about this. You know, you can't even coach these kids nowadays because then they'll go into a state of depression or go tell mom mm-hmm. or go tell. But really, the truth of the matter is, if you come to a job and you're late, you're going to get fired. If you don't do a presentation, you're going to get fired. If you're not doing your work in class and I bench you, that's the same thing as in the real world is called firing. You know what I'm saying? So, you come to a WNBA game, the problem with I won't say most WNBA players, it's just this new generation. The WNBA has a tremendous amount of talent. They just they're not bought in like I was. When I came here, I knew I wasn't going to get paid the most money. I knew I wasn't going to get, all of these endorsement deals and this and the other. But that's not what I play for. When I was playing pickup ball in Watts, when I was at Venice Beach playing pickup, I didn't play for the check. I played because I loved it. And then I was always in the gym because I want to get better. And one kid asked me at a basketball camp, she said, well, what happens? Do you miss your friends when you're practicing so hard all the time and you're in the gym? What about the mall? And I said, listen to me. I said, I'm in the gym because I want to be in the gym. And if you ain't in the gym, you're not my friend. Yeah. It's just that simple. If you're not doing what I'm doing, if you're not supporting what I'm doing, because I'm going to support you too. But if you're not supporting me, then we're not friends. I want the people that's in the gym working as hard as me as my friends. That have the same mentality. I want them as friends.
Yeah. And Mikey, I don't want to cut you off. And Coop, this is not a question. This is a statement. Mikey, I always find it amazing that all great people say what Coop said. You hear Kobe say it, Mike said, Kevin Garnett was the one I saw. It's always the best that work harder than the worst. But yet, in this generation, they feel like they can do it flip-flop. I'm like, you see the greats put in all this work, but y'all feel like y'all can reinvent the wheel by doing it the other way around. Coop, when I coached national team and when I coach in Europe, I tell these girls all the time, don't be the reason that 2030 version of you doesn't get an opportunity because you pissed on it. I say it all the time. I'm sorry, Mikey. Go ahead, brother. I wanted to say that.
No, it's all good. And I mean, Coop, I got to show off this picture of you with a bunch of legends. I know you've seen this picture before. You, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, young Melo, young LeBron, Moses Malone. You being around all those GOATs. Tell me about that night and kind of just your interactions with all of them.
So that was a huge Nike event. And, at the time I was pretty big in the WNBA, and Nike invited me up to help send off. And it was a tribute to Phil Knight. And so they invited me up, and it was an amazing night. And it's so funny because all of us spoke the same language. It was like a magnet, like we were just drawn to each other. And we just was hanging out and talking basketball and talking winning and talking, you know, how we get better, picking each other's mind. And it's so funny because the guys would call me over. They'd be like, Coop, come here, Coop. You know me, I'm like, that's Michael Jordan. Wait, let me look around. That's MJ. But everybody was so great. And I love being around greatness because you can relax and feel good about your mentality. People don't look at you crazy. They're not, you know, you're not the outcast. You're just a part of this elite group that have the same mindset and y'all just vibe. I'm gonna tell you a really funny story about that trip. So I'm in the airport. I see this guy. I'm like, all right, whatever. I get to the hotel. I see the guy and his family. So his wife, his 2 kids, they're checking into the hotel in front of me. So I think we're at the same event. I see him. I know him from somewhere. And then sure enough, I check in, they check in. We get to the elevator. We're in the elevator together. And all of a sudden, I got it. I said, Duce Maldini, Paolo Maldini. Now think about this for a second. This Black chick in the elevator with this Italian family and one of the best soccer players ever to play. He played for Milan AC. One of the top, he started playing pro at 17. And this Black girl in Portland, Oregon recognizes him. And she speaks Italian. You should have saw the kids. The kids' eyes were like this. The wife was like, huh? He just started laughing. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life.
Wow. And speaking Italian, when you would interact with Kobe, would you speak Italian with him? I know he was very into that.
Great question.
Yeah, so Kobe and I always spoke Italian together. We would be at All-Star games in the middle of 20,000 people, and he's shooting on the court. He's not listening to anybody because Kobe has that type of laser focus, right? So he's not listening. I'll start speaking to him in Italian. He looked, oh, what's up, Coop? So yeah, we talk in Italian all the time. 1, for him to practice, and 2, for me to practice. But it's kind of it was always our little thing that we would always speak Italian to each other.
I want to go back to back on a question, Coop, that leads into each other. But I have to focus on the one big thing that I think God placed for you. It was just amazing timing. How does it feel to be the first Hall of Fame player in the WNBA?
You know what? It feels great. It feels amazing. Words can't accurately describe the feeling when you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. But let me just say, you guys, you got to remember, most of my career was played in the shadows. So I was the 6th man in college, even though we won 2 national championships. I started playing basketball late in high school. We won a state championship there. And then I go overseas, and for 11 years, nobody see me, right? I do play USA basketball a little bit, but nobody really sees me for 11 years, 11 seasons. Then I come into the WNBA, and I have an amazing run in the WNBA. I don't know, in my mind, I don't know that that's enough to make it to the Hall of Fame. So when I got the nod, I saw on the screen of ESPN underneath that Cynthia Cooper, one of the finalists for, I was like, really? Like, me? So to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, it wasn't about being the first WNBA player. It was about, I never thought I had put in enough work in America to be considered great enough to make it to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You know, I dreamed of it. It was, yes, I want, but you know, I'm over here thinking, I'm a kid from Watts in the Hall of Fame. Like, you don't dream of being in the Hall of Fame. That's too big of a dream, right? You're just trying to further your education so you can get out the inner city and have a better life for you and your family. And then in 2010, I'm inducted into the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame. I did tap Mike on the butt when I passed by, like, yo, I'm in here, boy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in here, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, I want to say this. When I left college, it was never my dream, and this is me personally, it was never my dream to make it to the NBA. And I'll say it openly. Thank God for Flip Saunders and Sam Mitchell for giving me the invite to finally, make it to training camp. I just wasn't good enough. But, I got to be around those guys. But my goal when I left college was to see the world. I wanted to be a professional athlete my whole life. I have a passion and I was in love with the game, but I wanted to see the world. So when I watched your journey, it always motivated me to want to go the long way first, because I would have never made it at the beginning. I wanted to go through that whole, that whole transgression of life, to be in the furnace, so to speak, to be molded into the man I was, because I didn't get to NBA until I was 28, 29. And I made it, Coop, after I left the Jones Cup. That's how they saw me. Yep. And that's where I saw you, Coop. I don't know if you remember, but I seen you in LA. I got you and I said, Coop, I'm going to Jones Cup just like you did. And you was like, oh yeah, what I'm saying? That's how they saw me.
Yes.
And that's how I made it.
The Jones Cup was my very first international trip.
Yeah.
My first time getting a passport, going out of the country was with the Jones Cup.
It was my best experience in life, and it got me that opportunity. But what I'm trying to say is our young people don't realize that the USA is this big and they need to get out. I became a man when I went out. I learned how to not read. Of course, we went to college or whatever, but I learned how to see what I was reading when I left, because overseas time is slow time. I learned how to appreciate other cultures, and it helped me to develop my game because I had nothing but time to be into my game. So I always wanted to say that to you. Your journey overseas taught me about the fire and the growth, because I watched you grow and transition. And when you made it, I have never witnessed a person that's 34, even though 34 is not old, and basketball life is super old. But when you got there, it's like you hit a second wind of energy, like I'm 22 all over again. And I was like, do y'all see how Coop is moving? Like she is, her energy is make, like, when Kobe went through his 34-year-old MVP run, we all went outside like, I'm dunking on everybody this week. Kobe out here going crazy. That's how it was with you. I'm like, yo, Coop is starting over. She's a rookie and she's behaving like a 22-year-old. Like the zeal and passion, you can't deny the greatness of this woman. It's like reading the story of Christ. Everywhere he went, the impact was just unreal. Ali, wherever he went, people were just like, I just saw something. That's how we felt when you played the game. When you talked about the game, it was like, I love the game too, Coop, whatever you say.
I appreciate it. You know what? That was my goal. My goal was for people not to just see me score or see me fall in love with the game like I love the game. Like fall in love with hard work like I love hard work. Mm-hmm. Fall in love with not being perfect, just wanting to be great. Fall in love with the experiences. When I was overseas, one of my big lessons, I learned about me, right? I learned how to be confident in my own skin. I know it's shocking, but I wasn't a confident person. I wasn't a confident player. I had played in the shadows. I had been in the inner city. So I had a lot of personal hangups. Going overseas, immersing myself in the Italian culture, traveling all over Europe, all over the world, really helped me be comfortable in my own skin. And once I was comfortable in my own skin, I could truly appreciate the experiences of the different cultures overseas. And I was in awe. Man, I took so many pictures and just lived as an Italian in Italy, not as an American in Italy.
Mm-hmm. All right, Coop, now it's time. The segment we call Truth for Truth, where we put you on the spot about topics from your career. These are going to be the tough questions, right, JB? So that being said, Coop, do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth in this segment?
I do.
You can't handle the truth.
Question one, Coop. Who's the GOAT?
Me.
Who's the GOAT? Women's basketball, not WNBA. Who's the GOAT?
I'm the GOAT.
I love it.
And why, Coop? And why?
Well, I'm the GOAT because I put in the work. I came from a certain place. I didn't come from perfection. I didn't come from having all of the resources. I just put in the work in order to be compared to everyone else, right? And then I didn't set out to be great. I set out to be the best version of myself every single day. And it happened to transform into greatness. And can nobody hold me?
Nobody. Nobody.
Hey, that's
look,
man,
I'm 12,
woman, child.
Look, I'm 12 years old again. I just want you to know that just happened right then. I broke kayfabe and everything like wrestling. All right, cool. Look. How does, and this is a tough question, how does the WNBA get rid of the LA Lakers or Boston Celtics? Why is Houston not still a franchise?
I think that was a horrific oversight, and they let something really valuable go. I thought that they could have done some different things, even if you just move the franchise somewhere else for a period of time and then move it back. But you should have never let the Houston Comets dissolve, and that was a huge mistake for the WNBA. And equally, I would say, like the NBA really taps into their pioneers and their older players, the players that they're retired players, and help the retired players help promote the league, whether it be going to these golf tournaments or on the different shows, doing media. And I think the WNBA hasn't truly bought into that concept yet. And as a result, the passion I have, I don't get to give to the WNBA broadcast all the time. I don't get to give to the rookies. I spoke to Jewel Lloyd during her run this year, and they won the world championship in the WNBA. And I just was like, Jewel, you got this, man. You the gold mamba. You got this. You just have to believe you have it. Right? First and foremost, and then everybody else will fall in line.
Everybody's a fan of the NBA, and I'm not knocking the WNBA at all, but the numbers are a lot less. The pay difference is always spoken about and all that. What does the WNBA have to do to really, step up their game where it comes to ticket sales and, so all that could be matched up with the NBA?
I would say marketing. And I would say invest. But the players got to invest as well. You can't just win championships and get fans. You've got to invest in your community. You've got to invest in the WNBA. Some of these things you shouldn't have to pay these players every single time you ask them to do a promotion. Marketing is going to help everybody. So when I first came into the WNBA, I did whatever they asked me to do. Community work, go on this, do this commercial shoot, do this commercial shoot. I was all over the place because I knew that I was laying the groundwork for a 15-year-old, an 8-year-old, someone not born yet, to play and have an opportunity to play in the WNBA. That's what my role was. We need these new players to have that mentality. Right. These players right now need to have that mentality, and that also is a work ethic, right? It's a work ethic. It's something that you're not doing things to shame your league. You're doing things to build in your league. Yeah. You're doing things to promote your league. And listen, it doesn't always have to be in a monetary form immediately. You'll get that pay. Look at what they make now. I made nowhere near that, but the work I put in helped them get to where they are today.
That's right.
And so that's the mentality we women have to have. And then some of it is patience as well. Think about the NBA at 50, right? When the NBA was 25 years old.
Yeah.
Right? Look at how those players got paid. Look at how, and they complain about it all the time, right? They're like, I got paid $10,000. And now they getting 14 million, right? But that's the sign of a league growing. And the WNBA is still in this infancy. So we have to be patient enough, push when necessary, push when we can, push for growth, but also recognize that we're still a young league.
Well, I'm going to say it, before Mikey wraps it up. I truly, truly appreciate what you did for the game of basketball, not female basketball, just the game of basketball. And you are the sole reason why I invest my time, my money, and my effort into the ladies. I get very frustrated. I get very annoyed, but it always goes back to scripture with me when just give me one and you're my one. So if I have Coop, that means in 2030, it can be another Coop. So I got to keep pushing for my ladies. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it.
We appreciate you, Coop. We appreciate you, Coop.
I got to hop in with one more, JB, just before we go. if Sheryl Miller stayed healthy and she got to the WNBA, one, would she be the GOAT? And two, what kind of numbers would she have been putting up?
Good question.
Yeah, I think if Sheryl Miller had stayed healthy and made it to the WNBA, she would have been playing at age 33, and I would have been playing at age 34, and I still would have been the GOAT. That wasn't the question? No? Okay. The only reason is, here's the reason. So Sheryl Miller, when she started playing in college, she was great. One of the absolute greatest player I've ever seen play basketball. Like I said, I was jealous of her. I wanted to be like her. So I went and put in the work, right? But Cheryl's career was already here. My career was here going up. So by the time, it would be close, but I'd be giving her numbers too. No, I'm just kidding. She would listen, you guys, Sheryl Miller was one of the greatest players I've ever seen play. She could really, really play. And she played both sides of the ball. She was the first player at her size to do the things that now we take for granted, right? She handled the ball. She shot the ball well. She finished around the rim. She played great defense. Actually, I say around the rim. She finished over the rim. So she used to practice on dunking in games before the Candace Parkers or that's what she did in the 80s.
Yeah.
So yes, she would have been great. She would have been great in the WNBA. I don't know if she would have been Coop, you know what I'm saying, but she would have been great.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 3 of the Truth Podcast. Stay tuned for another interview for a second part on this episode with Chasity Melvin. Coop, as Jermaine said, and I want to thank you personally. Thank you so much for joining us and spitting the truth with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Thanks again.
Take care, you guys.
All right, cool.